The rubber industry is the engine of the Malaysian economy. As a world leader in its production, rubber is a commodity we can be rightly proud of. More than 500 manufacturers produce rubber products in Malaysia, employing many thousands of employees. These hardworking men and women are the backbone of the Malaysian rubber industry. To help employers identify risks of forced labor amongst its workforce, the Malaysian Rubber Council has produced a new guide in collaboration with the International Labour Organization. Addressing, preventing and eliminating forced labor in the rubber industry in Malaysia, a practical guide for Malaysian employers in the rubber industry, provides guidance to employers, particularly those employing migrant workers. It helps identify risks of forced labor in the recruitment, employment, and sourcing practices and how to effectively address, prevent, and eliminate these risks. What is forced labor? Forced labor refers to situations in which persons are coerced to work against their free will and are unable to leave that work because of threat, coercion, or deception by the recruiters or employers. The ILO has developed indicators that represent common signs or clues pointing to the possible existence of forced labor practices. However, they do not automatically indicate whether a situation is forced labor or not, except in special circumstances. ILO indicators of forced labor: abuse of vulnerability, deception, restriction of movement, isolation, physical and sexual violence, intimidation and threats, retention of identity documents, withholding of wages, debt bondage, abusive working and living conditions, excessive overtime. Malaysian legislation also contains provisions against forced labor. According to the Malaysian Employment Act 1955, an employer who threatens, deceives or forces an employee to do any activity, service or work and prevents the employee from leaving the place where such activity, service or work is done commits a forced labor offence. The employer can be fined up to 100,000 ringgit or face imprisonment for up to 2 years or both. In addition, a number of laws and regulations also address forced labor. Guiding principles and good practices on addressing, preventing and eliminating risk of forced labor in the rubber industry helps to address, prevent and eliminate risks of forced labor with a focus on the recruitment and employment of migrant workers. It focuses on a number of key phases of employment. Pre-employment. Many challenges faced by migrant workers stem from the recruitment phase. The guidelines describe how to eliminate deception and coercion in recruitment practices. Areas covered include pre-selection due diligence, post-selection due diligence, recruitment fees, fair recruitment practices, pre-departure and post-arrival orientation, fair and transparent Once workers have entered employment, forced labor practices may emerge if coercive practices are used. The guidelines describe how to eliminate risks of forced labor in employment practices, including wage payments, wage deductions and in-kind payments, loans and advance payment to workers, working hours, rest days, holiday and leave entitlement, disciplinary and grievance measures, passports and personal possessions, freedom of movement, accommodation and health, retention of workers, freedom to join a trade union. Post-employment practices. Forced labor practices can also emerge during the termination and repatriation phase. The guidelines describe how to eliminate deception and coercion in post-employment practices, including termination, dismissal, resignation, and repatriation. Termination of employment. Final wages. Repatriation. This guide on addressing, preventing, and eliminating forced labor in the rubber industry in Malaysia, a practical guide for Malaysian employers in the rubber industry, is a joint initiative of the Malaysian Rubber Council and the International Labour Organization's Sustainable Supply Chains to Build Forward Better project.